your videos on, or are you phoning in? They're all on mute, so. Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. We are now live in our Zoom meeting. And welcome to the official community plan advisory committee meeting. First off, we want to very respectfully acknowledge that this meeting and our subject matter, the City of Courtenay, are on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, and we thank them. Second, a bit of an official statement, due to the coronavirus COVID-19 emergency, the City of Courtenay, with the authority of ministerial order number M192, local government meetings and bylaw process, COVID-19, order number 3, implemented changes to its open committee meetings. In the interest of public health and safety, and in accordance with section 3.1 of ministerial order number 3 M192, in-person attendance by members of the public at committee meetings will not be permitted until further notice. Meetings are presided over by the chair or acting chair with electronic participation by committee members and staff via live web streaming. So thank you all for attending. Lindsay, we didn't expect you today. It's good that you're here or almost here. Now, in the few minutes beforehand, we did go over some of the processes, and I just want to start with that. Generally, we should all have our audio muted unless we're speaking. And also, we'd like people to use the raise hand button over on the participants list. If you want to speak, that brings up a little blue hand on your screen, and we'll all know who needs to speak. If you do hold up your hand, that's fair too, but that will give a mixed signal. I took a tumble on my bicycle yesterday and sprained my hand, so you will see my hand up here a lot, but it doesn't mean I'm in the queue to speak. It just needs to be in that position. Are there any other protocol issues that people want to mention, or you have any questions? Okay, good morning, everyone. What we want to do is open early with a roundtable of just how everyone is doing. And as at our last meeting that Betty, thank you very much, Betty, chaired, I will entertain a motion to move item number 8 forward in the agenda. Is there a mover to that? Betty, seconder? Sheila, Chairman Sheila, congratulations on your new job. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. So it's been a while. In fact, the committee formally got together way back in February, although several of us have been on Zoom meetings and what have you since that time. Just want to do a brief check-in of 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes maximum, of where people are in terms of our community now. How have you been doing through the COVID? What dramatic changes do you see? What do you most worry about? And that's could be a very long agenda, but just make a point or two, and let's get us centered in on what we're doing and why we're doing it again. Tom, do you want to lead?
Thanks, Norm. Big question. You can, in terms of me personally, not really much change. You know, my work hasn't slowed down. I'm an architect. We've got new projects coming in. There seems to be lots of projects small ones, renovations, big ones, they're all happening. And I'm getting phone calls from all over the Northern Island. So I have a small office. It's just me. I keep the door locked. I got bottles of sanitizer everywhere. The impact is, the actual day-to-day impact has been fairly minimal, although I do miss going out. I haven't had a coffee from across the street since March 15th, and I haven't had a beer at the pub since about the same time. I did put a proposal out not that long ago for a big, again, an affordable housing project, affordable seniors housing project. And I thought I was being proactive in suggesting that there is going to be, we call it, everyone's been referring to it as the new normal, but there are a lot of ways that we can change the design of our built environment. Similar, that's what we're talking about with the OCP. And I felt a bit slapped in the face that, oh, we don't need to do that. We just want a normal project, just the way it, and I kind of thought, that's disappointing. And I didn't get the job, by the way. So I don't have to fight with them anymore. So I think there's definitely, we're seeing the fatigue, and we just all can't wait to get back to normal. And part of me always feels like I've seen this, I saw this coming, I saw this way worse than anyone did at first. I still don't see a very happy outcome long-term. And I think we're gonna miss the point by being in denial, that we're gonna miss the opportunity to take advantage of this eye-opening exercise that we've all gone through. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's enough, probably.
Good. Sorry,
I'll mute myself.
Diane.
Thanks, Norm. The chamber has hit the ground running on as things started to progress. Probably a week after we had to leave the office, we hit the ground running and started offering workshops on Zoom for business owners and the community on how to access all the information that was coming from the government in terms of grants for businesses and things like that. We phoned all 500 of our members to see how people were doing. We now have 3 staff working offsite and 3 staff on-site. For us, what we've noticed is we had the busiest summer we've ever had. Typically, that's when we're prepping to get ready for the budget and all that kind of stuff. So we've had the busiest summer we've ever had. We've done a lot of collaborating. We opened the Comox Valley Volunteer Connector. So we are now also the home of the Comox Valley Volunteer Center. And we have a matching program to match volunteers to nonprofits. And of course, we're still the Chamber of Commerce. It's just something that we've taken on the side because there was a need in our community. So now we're working at getting youth engaged in volunteerism, and we have a lot of keen youth in our community, and we want to give them a place to sign on and get them out there helping and working. So I think we've done a really good job. We're concerned about our economic recovery, and that's what we're here for. The chamber is here to be a helper. We're here to help business and to see things move in our community so that the Comox Valley can continue to be a great place to live, work, and play.
Good. Thank you. And that's an exciting update that the volunteer center concept is back alive, and that's great. Betty.
Had to unmute. My life recently has been about organizing the Person's Day lunch, which is going virtual and online with Zoom this year. It is October the 16th, and I would invite everyone attending this meeting to take a look at the Comox Valley Record, a notice which is online. I'm so grateful for that. We're partnering with the Transition Society this year, and Diane is one of our speakers. It's our 6th year. We have 6 panelists. Please come, and if you're male, you can come online. Bring your wife. The life with COVID as a senior, I'm so grateful for the Riverway and the increased garbage bins along the Riverway. I really applaud the city for that. I also applaud the city for doing social distancing in-person stretch and yoga classes at the Native Sons Hall. It's meant a great deal to meet socially with many seniors. And those are really positive initiatives. I miss the swimming pool, and I'm told that at Vanya you have to wear your swimming suit there because they're not using the change rooms, and then you will leave in your wet swimming suit to go home, which I think is ridiculous. And when I talked to the health officer for Vancouver Island, she said, why? We've had 20 cases on Vancouver Island. We have to practice containment, but policies like that may need to be reviewed. Most of my friends are seniors who have been rather insulated financially, but what I've noticed is that some of the older seniors in particular are becoming overextended with giving from charitable organizations who are phoning and pleading, and then these isolated seniors can't resist, and so cumulatively they're giving too much for their income, which I think is a new problem. We all know about the more vulnerable, but I'm talking about lifestyle changes among seniors who are weathering the storm rather well, except for the isolation, and in some cases, the vulnerability with respect to appeals that they're getting. Most of us have learned how to navigate Zoom. So it's Thanksgiving weekend. I've tried to make thanks my priority. And I really am grateful for living in a municipality that is doing its very best.
Good. Thank you, Betty. Dawn.
My printer just decided to start making some noises. Why don't you come back in like one person? Oh, actually, no, it just stopped. Fine. All right. There's a good synopsis of how things are going. Arts Council wise, good news. The fee for service is up and running. Our association has now moved into the third floor. We're now sharing space with the art gallery in a much larger, safer space for our staff, which is amazing. The future is that we will have probably some co-working spaces and a larger area to offer share office space and for other people who need that access. So there's some really exciting things about that. If we ever get to do it again. And that's the bad news, is that the arts, as we all know, has probably been hit pretty catastrophically about this. So it's been sort of frustrating and depressing and also exciting and seeing the resilience. But at the end of the day, we realized that the arts, a lot of it is about getting together and being part of a scene, a community and everything. And that ability to get together is hamstringing a lot of artists in a lot of different ways often. So, and there's no end in sight. Moving to the phase 4 when we have a vaccine is probably one of the big things we're waiting on. So that's a challenge. We're just plugging away. In the meantime, reshaping, reformatting, tightening, crossing T's and dotting I's in terms of how the organization works. Professionally, as a landscape architect, I'm actually not that busy, Tom. So feel free to call me and we can work a little more. It actually has slowed down. I find a lot of projects stop. So a lot of developers and a lot of development has gone into a planning phase. So there may be a big launch later. We don't know when that is. A lot of funding consequences and private equity firms and money too. So we'll see. The third one, personally, my son just started preschool or kindergarten in public school. So we're navigating, that's our only kid and our first kid. So it's navigating that and also COVID. And like Betty said, some of the crazy things that you're like, really? Is that how we've got a 60 kid cohort, but they've also got, we go to the playground across the street and the cohort just explodes. So we sort of understand, I get it, we're trying, but it doesn't mean we give up, but we have to be a little more understanding about it. So at times I get pretty okay. My life didn't change too much working from home. I'm already set up to do it. But sometimes my inner fatalist just goes, I just want us to hit rock bottom so we can start rebuilding this sort of, it feels like we're in just a very slow crash. And I'm like, once we know what the final results are, we can start rebuilding. But I guess that's a long-term issue with this. And anybody who lived through a war or strife like that or the Depression has the same sort of challenges. So it's an up and down. The arts is keeping me a little focused. My child's the one that sort of helped me through this the most. So it's a roller coaster.
Thanks, Don. Bob, do you have a couple of comments you want to make without going through your political achievements of council over the last 6-8 months?
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, really just looking at, obviously, as Betty was saying, it is Thanksgiving. So, my mind is looking to things to be thankful for, but also recognizing that for some people, Thanksgiving doesn't have a positive historical context. But I think, when we look at our community and whether that's Courtenay, which I do sort of see as the heart of the Comox Valley, there's been some really positive things, I think, in terms of what our community can do. We just lost an amazing individual, Earl Naswell, who had done the Christmas dinner since 1982. We have organizations like Yana that had a bike ride this summer that made more than they made last year by adapting what they were doing. And in just a few weeks, we're going to have the Child Development Telethon again. And so there are people really learning how to adapt, which is positive, and I like to see that innovation. I'm unfortunately not a big fan of sitting in front of a screen with video. I'd much rather be in person, but really, seeing that resilience, there's still a lot to do. I think, as Tom said, that the repercussions are going to be long-standing. Last week at the Economic Recovery Task Force, we did get some recommendations that are now going to the local governments. But having said that, we've been working this since the beginning of the pandemic in March. So I think, again, I'm always an optimist, and so it's hard for me not to see the positive. But at the same time, I feel the drain. Things, it's just not the same energy. You're used to doing things in a certain way. Last night I was in an event where I would have hugged at least 3 or 4 people, and to not even be able to touch them is psychologically, it certainly carries its weight. And so I really want to acknowledge, how this can really affect people in the bigger sense. But again, I really want to give kudos for everybody today giving up their time and to staff who've really tried to adapt the OCP process so that we can continue on and get to a good outcome. So I think, it's, all things being considered, we live in the center of the universe. It's pretty healthy and safe to be here right now. I think, keep an eye on the prize, as Tom said, being very cautious about going out and making sure you're washing your hands and socially distancing so we can keep things under control. But again, like I said, I love where we are, and I really just want to give kudos for everybody for stepping up and helping continue this process.
Good, thank you. Not unexpectedly, it does take us a little bit of time to work through. So I'll just remind people as we're halfway through just to be conscious of the overall time. Tanis, how are you doing?
I'm learning how to navigate 2 screens, a new technical challenge. That's why I'm looking funny in one direction. I'm having a very quiet summer and fall. Some of the grant and local government and other money or contracts that might usually flow my way are less available. Personally, I'm taking it as an opportunity, which I've been enjoying. I am reflecting a lot on the changes that have been brought that might leapfrog our awareness and and already are with respect to what's going on in society, and maybe even manifesting, in the next mandate of our provincial government, with people thinking about food and water security and where the water comes from. So yeah, and I'm also concerned about our process and how this really dramatic change in how it's unfolded compared to how it was planned might affect the outcome. So I'm really hopeful that the process is robust and we'll get what we were hoping for out of it.
Good, thank you. Tats and Nancy, do you mind if I skip over you two and we just move through? And Sheena.
Hi, everybody. I'm okay. I would say from personally, I'm fine. It's strange days to be living in and just pay attention. But I work mostly with students, and so school's back in. And what that has meant is that for us, all of the mental health and substance use challenges that young people were facing were tenfold through the pandemic and through the containment in their homes. So now that they have been freed and are back in the schools, we have an onslaught of referrals. So clearly the pandemic has really hit, from our perspective, really hit young people hard. Not surprisingly, very social group, very peer identified. So that's been a bit of a challenge. For my work, I'm having to change my entire program, and it's exciting and fine, and I don't mind doing that. So that's all. I'm hanging in.
Good, thank you. Aaron.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we're navigating this world as best as we can. Happy to be part of the process again. I missed the last meeting, but Tim stepped in for myself. I can echo what Dawn is experiencing. I've got two young ones returning to school, and so that's faced some challenges on my family and for me personally. But kids are pretty resilient, and so I'm actually quite proud of the school system and the steps that are being taken for our young ones. Professionally, it's given me some flexibility working with the stewardship sector and the partnership, the conservation partnership, being at home. So I appreciate that aspect. Our stewardship groups have shown a lot of resiliency. We work in the natural world and spaces, and so they've managed to adjust, inputting social protocols to some of their continuing work in the summertime for cleanups and some of their projects. So I'm actually quite proud of how they've adapted to this scenario. There's definitely some shifts in office environment and volunteer protocols, which I think translates to many levels. Probably first and foremost is how, as the stewardship sector, we're going to keep climate in our conversation, climate in the conversation of funding and in the provincial, local, COVID recovery strategy. So we're really trying to network to make sure that we've got that coordinated voice to keep climate as part of that piece of community resiliency in recovery. Our natural spaces have had a lot of use, which is wonderful. Everybody's getting out and using our natural spaces. So there is a few challenges popping up that way for our stewardship groups with the implications of that usage and balancing in those sensitive features as well. So there's some issues popping up for our organization, but in general, they've adapted really well to Zoom. We all want to hug, we all want to have our AGMs in person and give credit to where credit is due. But I think, again, I echo where Dawn is going. We're on this plateau, and so I'd really like to see an end to it all, so we start recovering and meeting in person again. But I think you're facing some of those challenges quite well as an organization. So kudos to all my volunteers that we work in partnership with. So I think that's it.
Good.
On my end.
Thank you very much. Annalise.
Thank you. I think what Sheena said about youth being hit with this pandemic has really gotten us to adapt. I know for myself, all of my school work has been put online, and that is extremely draining to be doing university as my first year online. But I've found ways to adapt. And like Betty said, it's really nice that some things are starting to opening up, like classes, so I can go and take a class and see other people. And it's just nice to connect with other people, even though we might not be physically being able to touch each other, but just being able to see people and go outside and connect. Over the summer, I was able to be part of a conference that was done by the Climate Caucus, which was an amazing opportunity that Will Cole Hamilton presented me. And this week, we're starting up the lectures with the Elder College, which is exciting. It's something that I missed. And this week, we have a presenter on the topic of disaster at the crossroads, which I think is really important because even though we are in a pandemic, we still have the climate crisis that we're facing, and it shouldn't be forgotten. It's going to continue to cause problems into our future. And then the following week, we have a panel of youth who are going to talk about climate and our implications and how we can kind of move forward as the future progresses. So, yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Derek.
Good morning. Thanks for the acknowledgement. Well, like everyone, March and April were chaotic when nobody knew what was going on. And so effectively for my industry, we shut down. I'm sure Gary, I can see Gary there, we, for all intents and purposes, the world ended for about 6 weeks. And then defying logic, for lack of a better term, all hell's broken loose. It is literally defying logic right now, what's going on in the real estate industry. It's absolute chaos, to the point where we're seeing, 06, 07 multiple offers and, 5, 10, 15, 20 people lined up for homes. There's just not enough inventory, frankly. So I know this doesn't necessarily deal with the city of Courtenay, and that's where we are, but it should be recognized on a macro level that the town of Comox, through much encouragement and cajoling and prodding and pushing, approved that massive project up by the Quality Food site, which is 210 rental units, set above 10,000 square feet of commercial space. So we feel that that is going to abate and certainly help with the rental issues that are here in the Comox Valley. We obviously have a vacancy rate that's 1.5%. So we feel that. Thank you, and I'm going to recognize the town of Comox mayor and the council. I know this is a city of Courtenay thing, but it does have a macro issue throughout the Comox Valley. So I appreciate the acknowledgement, but I'm sure Gary, when you get to him, will attest to this. But it's the real estate. We don't have enough inventory for people, and this is causing prices to go through the absolute roof. So we have an affordability issue here in the valley, and it needs to be addressed. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Gary.
All right. Hello, everyone. So yeah, I definitely would completely agree with Derek there as far as the development community locally. March was definitely, obviously resounding with everyone. It was a little strange there, even in my world, for sure. It didn't take long though, and once the government set out our parameters, on how we could work in construction, from there, we've been super busy throughout the summer, and again, it's we're seeing lot shortage, development land shortage, and that type of thing. So those are the things that would definitely concern me moving forward, because as far as affordability, it drives our costs way up if there's no supply. So supply is a huge issue, and a supply, not even like a local supply of lots, but even materials, like we're running into issues with material shortages, which is obviously a much larger issue. But those are some of the things that we're going to have to navigate moving forward. Some of the good things we're seeing is obviously with the government offering CMHC financing through some of these rental projects. We're going to see a lot of those types of projects in for DP and on the books to start, because those rates are so low, which will help alleviate some of the rental issues. But I still think we're not getting to the heart of the issue of affordability, which quite frankly I can't see changing either in the near future. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Sheila, you're up.
Yeah, thanks. Well, this has certainly been interesting times. And in a lot of ways, some of it really suited me, because I was fortunate to be go into that immediate stage of lockdown with my grown children at our house on Hornby. We were all there. It was pretty nice, good way to be supportive. But then I was thinking about the people who weren't that, and a couple of friends whose parents passed away in hospital and they weren't able to see them. So there's been this two things here all the time. I think that all of us are. And I'm, been for years pretty, I've got a sarcastic streak, and I've got been a, eco doomsayer for 50 years since read, like Silent Spring and Small is Beautiful. But at the same time, we solve those problems. I've always been a person to work in a group, and at the most local level possible a lot of the time, because that's where we can have fun while we're making those changes. So these two sides were really balanced. And the interesting thing is, so I've gone through I saw the problems of our hospital care and home support for seniors. So we were able to provide 24-hour palliative care for the last months of a friend on Hornby's life. We got her out of the unit where she would have been completely isolated and took her home. But I was at the same time thinking about some of the wonderful people we met visiting Ward 4A and 4B, and they were left behind and didn't have the solutions, and families where the home support, the normal home support visits just disappeared overnight. So you have this two-sided thing. But it's interesting because in the end, I feel like I've kind of, in the end, I feel positive. I feel optimistic. I'm content. Our condo was just sold and we have to find another place. And I was like, there is no other place to rent, no other place at all. And yet I thought it would unfold, and it has, because a friend had a basement suite that will do just nicely. So somehow for me, I've been overwhelmed by the positives. The work that our school district, all our staff did was just phenomenal. Planning this way, planning that way, changing this, changing that, respond. And then the confidence and the trust and the bravery of our staff and our parents to go back and to try to understand what the numbers really say and not go to fear, go to positivity, creating new things, more opportunities for outdoor learning. All of these things are, yeah, we're in a catastrophe, but there are ways. It's identified the big gaps and the inequities, but there's an awful lot in there for solutions if we are determined to make those changes. They're there and they're so positive. So it's a bit weird. Now, I've all the way through, there's been people talking about, oh, don't be Pollyanna, but seriously, Pollyanna, the message is misunderstood, because you play the glad game. She went around the people who were so mired in negativity and fear. The glad game is not easy. The glad game takes a lot of work, and it takes your whole community. So I'm embracing that Pollyanna, which will tell you something about my influences back in 1964 or whenever. But really, the work of our food policy people, Lush, the effort that's been made and the steps forward, because all the other parties are getting on side too and helping. The housing is not enough. We know that, but huge steps being made forward, and just shifts where people said, well, yeah, that'd be nice, but we can never do it. And suddenly the things that some of us have been talking about for a long time and promoting and everything, they're happening, right? So yeah, this is like it's Dickens, right? The best of times, the worst of times. And we've got path going forward. And I'm just feeling like we can be on it, you know? And we tried sourdough and it was a disaster, but there's sure a lot of therapeutic value in a flock of chickens. So life really for me is not so bad. Some pretty every day, what's the fresh disaster? And then where's that cup of tea? You know, what are we gonna bake with all these apples that are just falling into our hands? So I don't know. That's
Thank you, Sheila.
interesting times.
It is.
Yeah.
Lindsay.
Hi, Norm. Hi, everybody. I didn't think I'd be able to be here today. So at my house, we have our first sickness since pre-COVID. And so I have 2 school-age children and a partner. And so we are currently self-isolating while we wait to be tested. So it's certainly an interesting time and sort of giving me some insight into what this winter is likely going to look like in terms of folks with kids at home when they get sick and then, you know, we can't go to work. From the health network perspective, in the early days of the crisis, we worked, we sort of shift our focus to partner with the regional district to distribute some funds in the community. So focusing on homelessness, food insecurity, and seniors isolation. Because mainly what we do at the health network is community engagement, is meeting with big groups of people. Everything looks a lot different for us, and we've really had to switch the way we do things. In terms of our engagement efforts and realizing the barriers to engagement online for a number of different reasons. So we have a number of projects right now that are up and going. We're working with the regional district on their poverty reduction strategy. We're working with community members on a substance use policy for the Comox Valley. And I would really encourage everybody who is in Courtenay, who's able to check out the Walk With Me exhibit that's currently on at the Comox Valley Art Gallery. It's an outside distance walk. They've done an amazing job of collecting some really personal stories from folks who use substances to tell their stories and share. And I think it's a way to humanize this other crisis that is going on in our valley, the drug toxicity crisis. So if you can, I encourage you to check it out. And then I guess what we're just hearing right now, even in the last 2 weeks, you know, a real increase in mental health challenges for folks in some of our partner agencies. So sort of the second wave of, you know, a lot of the economic benefits have been reduced for people. The rate, you know, the rent and the eviction stuff has all starting to come to an end. You know, families, staff, and residents in long-term care facilities are still struggling with seeing their folks sometimes, and access to good, healthy food. So yeah, that's what's going on for us. It's definitely interesting times. And you know, we had, maybe Nancy's going to give an update on the age-friendly conversation that we had yesterday as part of this process. But I think we had a great conversation and really thought about how we engage with folks right now, and this idea that, you know, making an effort to really get out and talk to people and getting 10 really thoughtful responses from people we don't normally hear from, in my opinion, is much more important than 200 survey responses from people who sort of share the same background or demographic. So I was really encouraged by that meeting yesterday, and some of the comments that Betty made as well. So thanks for that, Betty. We were really able to build on that yesterday in our conversation. So I'm here, but I'll be kind of in and out in the background. My kids are having screen time right now, but I'll mostly just be listening. So thanks, everybody. Great to catch up.
Good. Thank you. Just briefly, since I was with you last, I've gone through 2 different types of cancers, and I'm in the cleanup stages, which is really quite wonderful. They went really quite easily compared to so many other people that suffer with this. And I think my COVID experience is much like my cancer experience. I haven't seen the downside. I've been pretty much self-isolating since we last saw, for personal reasons as well as COVID reasons, but it's meant that I've put almost 1,800 kilometers on my electric bike, which other than the times I fall off, it's really great. A couple of things I find really uplifting, and I'm like Sheila and others that there's some uplifting times through this. If you haven't seen The Collective, that glossy magazine for the Comox Valley that comes out, this month's issue has an article of someone writing from the perspective of 2040 and what would Courtenay look like? How does Courtenay look in response to or as a result of the COVID crisis in 2020? It makes fascinating reading, and it speaks to some of the issues that many of you have talked about of whether or not we lead with formal changes or just a passion for doing things different and better, and things start happening on their own that we wouldn't have thought were possible. And I think a lot of change comes from that informal just belief that we can do it. I'm also very pleased with how so many organizations responded so well to the social sector, which really faced some terrible challenges. And one thing I really like is the Comox Valley Community Foundation's Neighborhood Small Grants Program, which encourages the spirit of what we want. We've been talking about with this OCP, of the community getting together and creating small little local initiatives so that they can get some help from the foundation and funding and start building spirit in the community. And I think that's really great. I too have seen so many things I really like in the community and what's coming up. So I think as we move forward now on the OCP, we will be challenged to create an environment that encourages people to adapt rather than just trying to reestablish the new normal. And I think, and we may not have a lot of prescriptions per se, but I think that spirit of adaptation, rising to the challenges, is something that I think we've made a good start in the OCP. Thank you, Tats. Thank you, Nancy, in doing. But I think personally, that's where we need to go in this. So with that, thank you everyone for checking in. Just getting back to the formal agenda, because this is a committee of council, we do have to follow those protocols. Are there any errors or omissions to the minutes of our February meeting? And if not, could I have a motion to accept them? Thank you. Sheena, a seconder, Annalise. All those in favor? Carried. Now, no late items, so we're moving on to staff presentations, and I will turn it over to Nancy, I guess. Are you taking the lead, Nancy? Thank you.
Thanks for your patience there. I just lost my screen. So that's right. I'll be taking over the presentation. Thank you for referencing the CV Collective's vision. I'll just, as articulated in their article, I thought I'd start with articulating the essence of the vision that's taking shape for the OCP first, before I get into some of kind of the more details of how we got there and what the next steps are. So to date, the public engagement and technical review process for the OCP has resulted in a vision that includes net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, people at the core of community decisions with a focus on equity and reconciliation opportunities, developing within existing urban centers and neighborhoods for walkability and maximizing existing servicing, more housing choices, such as rentals, suites, townhomes, and small apartments, transportation investments that support walking, cycling, and transit, strong neighborhoods with unique character and identity, more space for and time in nature as part of all neighborhoods, productive community relationships with the city, and economic recovery and success that is ecologically and socially responsible and emerges from our community's values and sense of place. So those are the basic, again, elements, the kind of scaffolding of that will inform the OCP's more specific policies and details, which are still under investigation, under review, research, and which your input will be most appreciated on. So I'll just spend a few minutes going over kind of just that reminder where we are in the process and just the lightest touch of an orientation on the latest consultation results. I don't want to spend time on them because I just basically just now kind of reaffirmed the highlights from them, but at least then you can go to the documents if you want later and look at them in more detail. And then I'd like to allow time to talk about our next phase of engagement. It seems like we're always doing engagement. This next one is a lot more in-person opportunities. And then where you can fit in there. And if you have comments and questions throughout, I mean, I want to encourage you to ask and talk, when it feels appropriate, recognizing, of course, we want to, not draw this on too long and allow more for free comment for you at the end. So we'll just see how we can balance that as we go. So, I'm going to move through my presentation. Now, I did see Diane with her hand up, and maybe I'll just ask her if she has a quick question.
No, I put my hand up when we were taking.
Oh, no worries. Okay, great. It's a learning process. So just reminding us that we are in this kind of hybrid phase 3, phase 4. It's not an entirely linear process, but we're getting into this. The policies are emerging, the vision and the goals are certainly becoming a solid foundation. We've gone back to the public now to get that confirmation, and we're moving into the 3rd out of 4 engagement phases. And really the 3rd is really where it hits the ground, at talking to people in their neighborhoods. And I'll spend time, as I said, talking about that. Just a reminder, we did this survey in the summer. Thank you to everybody who helped get the word out. We had 782 participants, many comments. Those who participated gave a lot of comments. A lot of the people who participated were residents. At least 53% identified as part of at least one equity seeking group. 83% were not at the Ideas Fair. So we were capturing, more people. That's good. We were encouraged by that. We did, however, observe that we are still underrepresented by youth, single parents, and people of color and Indigenous people compared to our census statistics for those demographics. So we still, if we can get those voices out, let's try to do it. The vision and the goals, all I want to say is when you look at the summary document of the survey, which is on the project webpage, you'll just see that we tested on all the elements of the vision, all the elements of the goals. We asked people, how well does this resonate? Do you have additional comments? And so this graph is just simply showing that the elements are resonating, pretty high, but that 4+ out of 5 kind of rating mostly. So, okay, good to know. We did a check-in with the public. We asked people about the growth node concept, and that concept again envisions that 70% of new growth of the new 4,500 new people by 2031. That 70% of that growth would go into these colored areas, whether it be downtown, urban center, or the neighborhood hubs, and the remaining 30% would occur as infill in those other lands, as shown in a more kind of pinky peach color. And that is all, this concept emerged from a lot of the technical analysis that went behind to find the optimum locations for new growth. Now that new growth is envisioned to be more of a dense infill form. So that is why it is in those existing footprints. And so we asked the public what they thought of that, and a lot of comments, and then, the star rating as a kind of, an indicator of that. For those who participated in the stakeholder sessions, thank you. There were quite a few of you who did, and you'll you'll remember what a flurry of a week that was. And we held 8 sessions, 2 hours each in late July. We asked stakeholders about the climate lens, priorities and actions, and local ideas for climate action, community preparedness. We did talk about the pandemic because how could you not? It is very relevant. We heard from around 40 organizations, and then in any one session we had between 7 and 21 participants, and some people participated in multiple sessions. I only want to give some highlights of the cross kind of thematic themes we observed. I'll leave it to you to unpack, explore that stakeholder summary document, which I would have shared a link with, and it's also just on the project webpage. So the cross theme observations was that climate change is a widespread concern, but some interests include climate considerations more core to their work than others. We felt this was important to canvass because whereas it's a direction of our council, we don't know if stakeholders are feeling that same way. But nobody said that it was not important to them. So, okay, good to know. And then pandemic changes the way we view the future individually and collectively as an understatement. But an observation we made was that there was definitely an undercurrent of a positive can-do, let's use this as an opportunity, which I've heard a number of you in your opening statements say. So, okay, that's something of our ethos out there. Integrated approaches are needed to be effective in community actions on a variety of topics. The need for partnerships, the need to break down silos. I mean, we say that a lot. People are just re-emphasizing it. The regional governance, model that came up a few times in a few different discussions. So just looking how we work together, how we structure ourselves to deal with dynamic, changes, pandemic, climate, equity, or ones we haven't seen yet. That was articulated. Social equity considerations and concerns were voiced very loudly across every single theme. There seems to just be high sensitivity in our community, and I think that's a real asset. That's great, that people want to see those issues addressed. They want to contribute where they can. Planning for climate action has many public health co-benefits and vice versa, particularly in the areas of access to nature, transportation, and even sense of belonging. And we heard from Island Health pretty clearly that even though, of course, they are inundated with dealing with the pandemic, they continue to keep climate as one of their strategic priorities. So it was a good reminder, and they continue to want to contribute to making those connections between human health, planetary health. And the natural environment is one of the community's greatest assets. It doesn't seem to matter when we ask, how we ask the community about their goals. Nature just pops. It always is mentioned. So this may seem obvious, but it's important, I guess, to acknowledge that people continue to observe that about our community. I won't go through the thematic highlights just for the sake of time, but within each of the domains, I'm just letting you know there's some highlights, and those highlights are in that stakeholder summary document. I'll just make a note here. Number of stakeholders said, how come KFN is not involved in this? We'd like to see them involved. And just for clarity, there is a separate government to government consultation process taking place between city mayor and council and chief and council of KFN. So there are some discussions happening, definitely. And then just finally, the survey did ask how the city will grow, tested some photos and asked people to comment on what elements of those photos resonated or were, unappealing. Now this was, kind of this is actually an initial exercise, one that we will do in more detail in the individual neighborhood sessions coming up in later October. So we will be really trying to drill down what form and character, and not just of new buildings, but of also public realm, is important in different parts of town, while always remembering we're striving for that carbon reduction. So that's a real whirlwind of just some of the highlights of our latest consultation. Now turning our minds to our next phase of consultation. We will be conducting 11 workshops across the city in these general areas shown in those circles there. Those areas were chosen based on a variety of factors. I mean, they roughly map to where growth is expected and modeled to occur. So we know those are the areas that will be experiencing change. And so let's have that conversation with residents in those areas about that change. The East Courtney one is, I'll just put my cursor over there. Many single family homes, we know that secondary suites, secondary dwellings are one of the proposals. And so then talking to people in an area where there's a lot of single family homes where that use is not permitted is very important. So we'll have a discussion there. And then, so that's the workshop. And then we're going to hold 9 virtual neighborhood sessions. So there's a couple spots that only have a workshop, and there's a few reasons for that. More very specific staff council questions in those areas, but that they can then join in the virtual session as well. So the idea with the workshop virtual session was that for most of the areas, that people could have the option to walk around in a group of up to 15 people. But if people, either it was oversubscribed or people just simply did not feel comfortable joining on the workshop, then there's the virtual session. And they are not entirely, they are not duplicates actually at all. They allow for different types of questioning and in discussion format. Which I'll say in just the next slide. So the purpose is to discuss how the growth nodes can support those goals that I opened with, and then that form and character, which becomes, for the architects and the builders and etc., the realtors on the call, they're probably very familiar with working through development permit area guidelines. And so that kind of, what we'll be talking to the public with is to inform those tools in the official community plan. So those workshops will start October 26th, run to November 1st, and then we'll do the virtuals the week after, November 3rd to 10th. And the advertisement is ready, but what we're waiting for is the registration link to go live. Once it's live, we will be sharing it, and your ability to network with your people, please do. So we'll appreciate that. And then after the neighborhoods sessions, we still need to have the stakeholder actual problem solving workshops is how I think of them. We did the brainstorming in the summer. So just letting, topics just rise to the surface, let's hear. But now we actually have to work together to address unsolved complex policy topics, multi-sectoral and partnership focus. And the topics have not been crystallized yet, and perhaps maybe even through the discussion after this with you, maybe you'll, if you have ideas for policy workshops, by all means, we're still considering what those topics can be. But we can clearly see that affordable housing will need to be at least one of those stakeholder workshops. And we do have a study being conducted by Macola as part of the OCP project that's looking at these options available, and then when they present them, then we can explore them with the wider community. The climate action plan, which is we know it's core to the OCP, but there's actually a separate document that has policy options, looks at cost benefits to some degree, so that's a separate study. The age-friendly community, we received a grant for $25,000 over this past spring. And so that was, I believe, Lindsay was just acknowledging that work is underway. And the idea is that, of course, whatever ability to have additional conversations, et cetera, with that demographic, or people supporting that demographic, or people who are not yet seniors, but, we're all going to be one day, that just adds extra voice and perspective into the OCP. Now we know active travel is a major part of achieving carbon reduction. So we're going to need a workshop somewhere on that. We need to figure out what the specific questions are. green infrastructure, a really important topic, developments for both new development and also city standards. The floodplain, it's a complex topic, many stakeholder interests. And then intergovernmental collaboration kind of more generally, and I mean, we're observing there's ministries, et cetera, that are funding, that have projects, and then of course also our regional partners. And then the development process and environmental interests, and of course anybody who's worked in the development with applications and whatnot, you know that this is an ongoing topic to explore and to perhaps give some more clarity and guidance to. So we really look forward to workshops on these general topics. And so stay tuned on when we can get to announcing those. Now, ideally, if we would love, I realize I've been saying this for a long time, but I think these become the moments then when your particular perspective, expertise becomes, you can really, bring it forward in a more detailed and technical way. So we'll work with you to find times for those stakeholder sessions. And then council will be attending as well, up to 2 members of mayor and council. And that late November is that goal. Now, just going back to the neighborhood workshops, because I just wanted to just give you a little more detail on that. We're hoping that 1 member from the advisory committee could join on each walk. We would ask if any areas resonate with you. And I said walk, but I mean also virtual session as well. The thing is with the workshops, we have the COVID cap of 15 people. So the virtual we can have as, many. So as many of you want to come on the virtual sessions, please do. On the walks, we're asking, it would be ideal to have 1 of you. So if there's any areas of town, and I'll circulate this with you immediately after this meeting, even though it's not open for public registration, you can study the map. We'd love to know who might like to go on which walk. I'll circulate a sign up. And then, I mean, in the different areas, there are definitely different kinds of topics. And I mean, I'll just give you an example. So downtown, I don't want to spend too much time getting into all the details of what could possibly come up in a walk. I think if you decide you want to come in a particular area, then staff can brief you ahead of time on some of the elements we expect to come up and which we'd like to cover. But let's say the downtown, we know that a transit hub is it needs to be located somewhere in the downtown area. And there are 2 areas that have been informally conceptualized from BC Transit, and one is in the core of the downtown on 4th and Cliff, and then another one is near Harmston Park. So so talking about transit, that could change some aspects of the downtown. We know that we're going to be getting an EV charging station also in the downtown, so just talk about where that infrastructure can go. The 6th Street Bridge and its vicinity, if it ever does get funded, it will be quite a dynamic change in the downtown. A concept for a green street between the Old Orchard area and Thrifties along England, Duncan Commons as the plaza, and just general road space allocation. And then, of course, the gentle density around the greater downtown. What kind of character is appropriate as buildings are redeveloping? The Old Orchard area has very clear guidance on heritage character. Other areas outside the Old Orchard do not. And so just understanding from the community what's important, because we expect change to happen in those areas. So that's an example where, downtown's got particular issues, and other parts of town will have other particular issues. And I don't want to spend too much time kind of drilling into it right now, but if you have questions, maybe that can come up then. So that's where, for the purposes of me presenting, I just want to give you this overview. And I think now with this, remaining up to 55 minutes, if we go the full 2 hours, we'd love to just hear from you, some feedback, your reflections on maybe what you heard or ideas for the OCP. I mean, it's meant, you're meant to have creative input, high level input at this point, more detailed input later with the stakeholder workshops. But now I'd say please, let's open it to the floor. with Norm's guidance, please. And I'll stop sharing the screen unless you want me to share it again, I can.
Good. Thank you, Nancy. That was a lot of information packed in. And, you know, it really behooves us to, unfortunately, sit down and read those big documents that are on the website and go through them carefully to have a good understanding of what is there. Initial reactions to the walk shops, for example. My throat's a bit tight. So, Sheena.
Thanks there, Norm. I just had a question for you, Nancy. I'm just, you know, part of my interest in doing this work is to have regular people understand OCPs. So I'm wondering about the walk shops and if there's an opportunity in that for that kind of knowledge exchange with people so that they understand how they, like their very small and specific issue, which is what it will be, how that can play out in an OCP. I think people don't make that transfer very easily. And I think it'd be nice to have that as part of our work. But that was just kind of a question. If you could talk a little bit more about what those are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thanks, Sheena. Actually, because I was moving so quickly on the conversation here, I didn't mention the specific objectives of the sessions, both virtual and workshop, and they were written as follows. So seek input on how to bring the draft vision, goals, and growth concept to life in neighborhoods, including to guide the look and feel. Enable mutual learning about the neighborhoods in which residents learn about planning issues and directions from city staff, and city staff learn about neighborhood assets, issues, aspirations from residents. And then also to build understanding of the lived experiences and unique needs and aspirations of equity seeking groups in the neighborhoods. This is an area, the equity seeking piece is something we know we need to do, I guess, more work to understand who we're missing and how to access those voices. So that's where looking to you, looking to other service providers, we've certainly made connections. If we can get more that diversity of perspectives in the sessions, whether walking or virtual, that is a goal of this, because we know we're not hearing from certain voices. The specifics of how I guess we frame to the public how the OCP works, we'll have to find a way to kind of capture it in a hopefully a succinct way. And perhaps there's a way to have more resources online as well to kind of make those connections. But it is a goal to help kind of two-way learning there. Yeah.
Thank you. Just I'll allow a supplemental question there, Sheena, and then I'll go to Sheila.
Yeah, I guess it just highlights to me more, Nancy, that like I really noticed in the stakeholder sessions as well, a lot of people there are community-based organizations were really strongly represented. I felt like there was a real missing public representation by the base and by the economic development kind of side of things, and that kind of growth stuff. So it'd be, yeah, I think that in the neighborhood walks, we're going to get more of the neighborhood people and the ground level participants. I think that there, for me, I feel like I'm still missing a piece from major players in industry and development and what their experience, perspectives, and where we're going to start fighting.
Thank you. Sheila.
Yeah, thanks. So I think that the workshops are a really great idea. I know we've had success in doing that with active travel, where neighborhood people really, you know, you see something that the planners or the engineering department haven't noticed, and makes a big difference. And it's really been an effective tool. We did a little bit of it with our Lake Trail Neighborhood Connections stages, where early kind of some work around planning and the Arden corridor review going on at the time, and places like the, you know, neighborhood repair in Portland and Mark Lakeman do that work, and it's really effective, but the numbers are small. So I mean, well, one of the things I found was people would be like, well, we don't want any apartment buildings in here, and you go, well, you know, there's houses right here, but across the street in Willamar, there's there's a townhouse development, and those are 3 and 4-story buildings. They're not so bad, are they? We've had them around forever. A 4-story building's not the end of the world. And they're like, oh no, that's okay. I don't mind that. And if there's a few trees outside, and then you start saying, well, Well, you know, you walk down the street, here's a lot on Wilmar with one single family house and huge deep backyards. And here's a little lot that's the same lot with housing for 20 families. Oh yeah, that's not so bad. It doesn't impact us. So they start to put a bit more of a face. And a lot of those comments were talking about not having moved here for high rises. And we're talking about 4,500 people over the next 20 years. So you kind of go like, okay, let's just think about what does that really mean? How many units really are we talking about in different places? And that type of information is so interesting. But I'm wondering if there's a plan to have a videographer along with it so that the walks themselves are something that could be then available for other people in the community to see who didn't go and start to get an idea about what infill might look like and what turning a rambling, you know, especially in our area, the housing stock is aging, and an opportunity to replace it with better capacity, whether it's for 2 families or whether it's for 6 and 8 smaller units. It's like making it visual really helps. How do we get that information? And that would include some of those things like planning concepts and densification without it suddenly looking like a huge whack of towers, you know. That's just something that I would suggest could be really, really useful, that the walks themselves then have an opportunity to really amplify their reach. Is that possible?
Yeah. So making the connection of what density looks like in different forms, and that is a major intention, including here's some local examples people are familiar with. How do they feel about those? And then for the videography piece, it's not factored into the process presence. One factor that's, of course, everybody understands is challenging is the COVID protocols. So just having that group, they're going to have to be quite spatially separated. I can imagine videography and picking up voices could be challenging. I mean, maybe I'm just, throwing up logistical barriers without actually thinking through it properly. But to answer your question is no, we hadn't considered the videographer piece.
Okay, thank you. Derek. Are you there? Yep. And we need some sound from you, Derek.
Can you guys hear that now?
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to echo what Sheila said, because I think it's a really astute point, and I think it is on point. The better engagement that we can have with stakeholders, homeowners, renters in these communities when we talk about regentrification and updating is going to be better served for everyone. The biggest pushback that we in the development community, whether it be from the developer to Gary as the builders to Derek as the realtors and salespeople, the biggest pushback that we get, and I got to tell you guys, it is vicious. Yes. It's visceral. It is rage-filled pushback from the local owners about this. And the reality, I keep circling back to the same point, and I don't want to belabor this point, but there's an affordability issue here. We have a lack of inventory because we have a lack of lots, because we have a lack of services. So this all can be traced back to the municipalities, which is fine. We always do what you always did. You always get what you always got. But the reality is the reality. And the quicker that we can engage with the local community, and playing on Sheila's point, we're not talking about 15, 20, 30-story buildings. We're talking about infill and regentrification, replacing old homes like on 5th Street where the new bike lanes went in, those 6 or 5 homes that were dropped down and replaced. It's excellent. It modifies and modernizes the community. We've created walkability issues, bike issues. I mean, I think it's really important that we, as a group, present to the City of Courtenay development, to the planners, and to the council and to the mayor, I see him in the background, a bit of a strategic plan here on how we're going to attack this, because what I see from boots on the ground guy doing this day after day after day is that it's all over the place. What's good for Tom Dishelvoye is not good for Tats, which is good for Derek Costantino, but isn't good for Betty Donaldson. Nobody has a clue. And these goalposts move every week on the whims and wants and needs. If we have a collective plan on how to attack this, it's supply demand. We will start to attack this affordability issue and give people roofs over their heads. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? I think it will be a real challenge to do the walkabouts with a relatively small group of people and yet have a broad community outreach or engagement. Those two almost don't go hand in hand. So again, the staff will have to do the best they can at getting a variety of people at these sessions. And I think it's important for advisory committee members to attend if they can, but don't be surprised if staff give us a call and say, would you mind stepping back? Because if we can get the people in the community attending in enough volume, enough of them attending, that we can learn straight from them rather than through us, that would be very good. So we do want to be there, but I think we also have to be willing to step back if we can get the direct input from the different community members. So that's just a caution. Is that fair, Nancy?
Yes. Yeah, and actually I was just observing there's the little hands showing up, but I think people are wondering if they're being documented. Does that work for you, Norm?
I'm not seeing the hands, so when I see people lift their hands, that's the better indication for me, like Betty's just doing.
So maybe Tom, would you like to speak? I see your hands earlier.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tats. Thanks, Norm. Sorry, I didn't know if you could see those or not. I've been waiting to comment back to Sheena's original question, and I thank you for it. I think we share some concern about the integration of the master plan and how it relates to the local areas. Nancy, thanks for attempting to answer the question about how they're going to be done, because that's certainly one of my concerns right here. And even Derek, there's parts of what you're saying I think are really important, and they're not going to be dealt with depending on how we approach these walks. We've never done, as a consultant, I've never done a full OCP, but we have on many occasions done local area plans, which might include, the southwest corner of a city or part of a city or town. And our opinion is that it is incredibly crucial to educate the people, or don't bother wasting your time, because it then becomes a platitude. It's, oh yeah, well, we met with everybody. Well, I've heard mayors, not Bob, because this was a while ago, I've heard mayors say, we have done an unprecedented amount of public engagement. And I don't like confusing that with an unprecedented amount of wasted time for people. I speculate that if we do not educate the people in these little walkabout areas, and I'll explain what I mean by that, we are going to get, we'll get the rage, but it will be coming from the other side of the coin. It'll be coming from the NIMBYs. I'm all for this. I filled out the surveys, but I don't want it here in my number 14 area. And Betty, not Betty, Sheila, you're absolutely right. People, they're lovely. They can do the nice things, but what they don't understand are the big picture things, which goes back to Sheena's original question. The planners have to be able to show what 3 stories looks like. And if you did 3 stories in one area, that might be all 4,500 people, but it's got to be part of a master plan. And I think that education component really means that you design what you're proposing and you show them an example. And we were never asked for that by the various groups when we would do an LAP, but we insisted that after making a presentation, our first public meeting was a lecture. It was a 2-hour lecture put on by us as the consultants and showing what density increases looked like, showed where good land was supposed to be developed and what good land should be preserved and not developed. And people, if they didn't come to that lecture, they were not invited to the following subsequent workshops. You had to do both. The last thing we wanted was, you know, the NIMBY, not in my backyard. I don't want any of that shit here. Why don't you guys just get out of here? We're going to hear a ton of that, is my guess about what we're going to get out of these walkabouts. So I know it probably mucks with your process, Nancy, but to hear what the people say, you know, what does sustainable development look like? What does solar aspect look like? Water conservation? What does 3-story density look like? You need to show them and let them know that that's what we're hearing. That's what we want to be doing with this OCP. And this is what it looks like. And now you can have your feedback. If you don't like it, then you better start filling out these surveys and saying, we want status quo. We don't want any change. We want to rot and burn in a future hell of a climate crisis. So that, again, that whole education component is crucial if you're going to get meaningful response back from the lovely people of these numbered communities. Stop. I stop.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Could you show me visually if there's anyone else in the queue? Betty, I see. So Betty, you're next.
I'm agreeing with those who are concerned about the emotional reaction and also the need to have public engagement. So I'm making a suggestion that I made privately to tax public to all panelists. I think that once we know the hot spots with respect to topics and hubs, we should hold a meeting in the SID. They can have 50 people on site and plus people on the stage, and they can also simultaneously have people attend virtually. I don't think it should be done earlier. I think it should be done later when we are clear about 500 people wanting to sign up for local downtown or whatever. But I think that the SID needs the business. We might get a special rate. And I think that's a way of educating that Tom and Derek have been advocating. I support that, their thoughts. I'm just suggesting an idea.
Thank you. I think the part of the debate we're having is around the underlying understanding and purpose of public engagement. There are some people that are opinion makers, opinion shapers, and that are engaged enough and know the processes enough to be making thoughtful comments. There's a lot of other people who are disinterested in another group that are just, no, I can't see anything being different than what I see now. And what you're trying to do is move some people in both of the latter groups up into the first group of being informed and able to comment. And that's always a dilemma. I get frustrated when I see survey results comparing it to the demographics of the community, because the demographic, you will never achieve it because many people don't have online access. Many people aren't interested in these sorts of things. And so really what you're trying to capture is that group one of informed people that want to shape the community. But I think so there's almost two purposes to the walkabouts. One is to learn about what the future might be for the walkabouts. And in that case, you want knowledgeable, thoughtful people. The other is you want to hear from the typical citizen as to how they might react to some of these situations. So you're really reaching out to two very different markets. And it's a dilemma when you have limited space available. So I'm not sure how you achieve both successfully. Diane.
Thanks, Norm. I agree. And one of the things I noticed when we did the open house at the Philbert, or sorry, Native Sons, I think it was Native Sons. I can't remember. It feels like 100 years ago.
Philbert.
Okay, thanks. Was the lack of engagement that I sensed from the business community. And I think that we need to find a way to interact with the business community at their level. I mean, people that are small business owners, they can attend things during the day. They've got, you know, some of them only have themselves, some of them, they're a 1 to 2 person business, but they feed a lot into our community. 80% of our community is driven by small business. And I'd like to see some walkabouts where we're actually helping the business community envision how some of these proposed changes and ideas are going to impact them, so that they understand that the downtown cores and the places where we like to gather are still going to stay viable and be economic generators. So I'd like to see some walkabouts within the business community as well. There's some of the pods where people are located from a business perspective too, so that they're able to envision what's happening. And if they don't like, you know, if they don't agree, then we can take that information forward. And if we can help them see the story and how it's going to unfold, I think we would have more engagement from the business community.
Okay, let me just stop and invite Tom to explain what he just shared, because it takes over the visual part of the meeting and we can't, and therefore, I personally can't see who's got a question or wants to make the next comment. So Tom, do you want to explain what this screen share is about?
Sorry about that. I have no idea how to do screen share. I'm not very good at this. I thought I was going to just fill up my my window with an image of something that we had done as part of just one idea that we did with our Living City Challenge. We did this rendering to demonstrate what it was going to look like. And this was a very complicated idea, but the rendering was easy to digest. And I think that was just part of the whole education part, showing the visualization. When we did our local area plan, we actually designed the entire community so that a developer that comes along can see what's expected or what's been approved. And if he wants to do something else, he knows it will be a fight. If he wants to do what he's normally done, because that's what makes him a lot of money, he may realize that might not be the easiest route to go. And so again, that's just part of the visualization. So do you guys still see that thing?
No, it's off now.
Okay.
No, it's gone.
But
So Norm, can I just add, thank you, Tom. I thought maybe you just didn't like what I was saying, and so you took over the screen. And I get about the new development, but the other part is there's businesses downtown that have been there for a long time. So we need to come alongside and show them how we're going to integrate and include them into the process. And I know that's what we want to do. And so that's one of my suggestions, is that we really need to meet with the business communities, the business people that are in those areas that we want to beautify or change how things move. Thank you. Thank you.
I think, I don't know if you caught it when it went by, but Nancy put up a slide, and I'll get you in a second here, Nancy, on how the city will grow. And down in the corner were a number of bar graphs that illustrated how people reacted to the visual representation. If you had a 5 or 6 story building, the willingness was much lower than if it had trees and was escape. So earlier I said that we need to go through that and have a better sense of how people reacted to the more detailed visual learning. And I think, Sheila, that you'd mentioned that when you talk to people about the specifics of, no, this is the type of growth that we're talking about, and they went, oh, okay. And I saw a little bit of that coming out in that one set of graphs. that we could see that people's reaction when they hear infill, they think it's an 8 or 10-story building going up, and they react hostilely. And then when you say, no, it's a 3-story, you know, you still get the people saying much too much traffic, much too much crime, much too much, as they did in Aspen and in Comox. But at least you can start having a discussion there. Nancy.
Yeah, here, I'll just share that screen so that, because you were using it as a prop. So just Norm was referring to all those images, and we were getting an initial reaction from the wider community, and then we were going to use more images, local images, etc., to have the basis of that conversation. And I'll just stop sharing now. I wanted to just respond to a couple of points as people were raising them. On the aspect of the business community, at least on downtown, we have a special session walkabout for the Downtown Business Improvement Association. So that one wasn't advertised with the larger piece that I gave there. However, you are pointing out that I didn't mention it, and so, you know, if there's an advisory committee member who would be the most appropriate for that, perhaps it's you, Diane, that you're more than welcome to attend. If there were other particular business hubs, we could still consider that. Building in a few more workshops is possible if they're not part of the first push of advertisement, but we did recognize there may be people coming up and saying, we feel like we need some more focused attention. On the topic of the education piece, I have to agree that education, more time for it, more resources for it would be ideal. What I'm thinking, I thought Betty had an interesting idea, is kind of capturing a lot of ideas and then doing education. So I mean, is it better to do the education first and then do the engagement? Perhaps. But I will point out that with the workshops, they're going to be occurring the week before. I mean, one logistic reason around that was the weather. I mean, simply, I mean, 1 week to the next might not be that big a deal, but we know we're racing against the storms kind of. And then, so we'll capture some ideas in the workshop. And then in the virtual, perhaps what can happen where more people can attend is there could be more of a response in an education to points that people are raising. So that could be, that is definitely room to do that in the existing template that we've resourced. And then it's interesting to hear Tom's concept of a more detailed design per area to give confidence for someone applying for an application. That doesn't, of course, require more planning resources to hold those processes. Certainly after the official community plan, which gives that big framework for growth. I wouldn't be surprised if the need for more local area planning arises. How that lands in council's budgets of the future would be the question of to operationalize that. But that's one tool that's still in our toolkit, although down the road would be to do local area plans after adopting the official community plan. Now, this prescriptive nature of the city coming in and saying, this is exactly what we want. We've heard from the community, we want it to look like this. Yeah, I guess there's pros and cons, because sometimes, an applicant wants some creativity as well. And then that's where, the city's approach is generally more guidelines as opposed to an actual, visual. But I think it's a basis of a very good discussion, because a community could decide to go in a more prescriptive way, certainly. So I just want to respond to a few points I heard arising.
Okay, let me stop and just do a housekeeping check-in. We've been going for an hour and a half now. It's just after 11:30. I'm anticipating this meeting could go till 1, but do people want to take a 5-minute break just to get up and stretch?
If I may interject, it was planned till noon.
Okay,
yeah,
so we should keep going here then.
Yeah,
if people can last. And so we have a sense of what the walkabouts are. What I would like to do is to move a little bit more into the more specific planning around that, and then do a check-in on whether or not this met people's needs. And that will be a very, very brief answer. Is that fair enough, Nancy? So what do you want to accomplish? What do you need from us still at this stage?
Well, yeah, I appreciate we're putting forward an engagement proposal and then you're providing feedback while we're in the process of like getting the communications out. So it's just the nature of, from the very beginning, we knew this official community plan was going to be on a very ambitious timeline. Many OCPs can take 2 to 3 years to develop, and we're aiming for 16 months. So that's always been the perpetual challenge. So I recognize that you're providing you're doing what your job is to provide the creative input, and what staff's then task and challenge is to try and incorporate your creativity in a process that's moving. So what we would still need, by all means, continue the conversation of creativity. I mean, what we're hoping for is you'll sign up for a session, tell your friends the virtual sessions. You can attend as many as you want, as many of you can attend on any one virtual session. So I mean, that's just logistics, getting the word out. But I'm really appreciating the creative discussion we're having. So I don't think I need more than to just say we want attendance and promotion.
Okay, and those things will be coming out as soon as they are approved. And as you said, the walkabouts are planned to start on the 26th. And so, again, we're compliments to the staff for coping with such very tight timelines. You had an aggressive plan at the start. COVID pushed everything back, and you're still trying to meet the deadlines at the end. And so that's great in this. So are people comfortable with now waiting to hear what the request from staff is? Does anyone have any specific questions as to the next steps forward? Tom.
Okay, so just to follow up, perhaps I've not been paying as much attention as I should have been, but to Nancy, these walks, are they going to see something that they're going to be able to react to, or are they just intending to provide additional feedback on the research than the surveys and questionnaires that have been done so far?
We will be establishing some routes in the next short while, and we're designing the routes so that indeed it is allowing for discussion of points of change, of areas where change could occur, so empty lots or redevelopment sites. And then also looking at, I mean, in that downtown, there's some specific infrastructure changes that are happening, bridge or transit hub. So yeah, I mean, the walks will be curated with the intention of trying to look at what exists there, what there's opportunity for change. Those are, I mean, to be honest, we're still working on the details of the route.
So curated, graphically described in the invitation, or I'm just wondering if there is an opportunity for some kind of a design sketch or something, or are they going to just be reacting to the curated? I mean, I'd love to hear you, using your hands describing the future of the old orchard, with a bunch of people, all holding lattes as they walk through, and you imagine this and we imagine this and so on and so on. Or are they going to actually have something? Is your intention to put something together for them to respond to at the invitation stage?
Yeah, the idea of preparatory materials has certainly, it's on our radar. If we could put together a package of kind of key themes to consider. I mean, I agree with you. Visuals are really important, and they're easy to integrate in the virtual sessions and less easy to integrate in the walkabouts. So I would say it's a logistical element we're still trying to figure out, because walking around with visuals is difficult because of all the spacing in particular. So yeah, some element of package preparation was, all I can say is I think it's still on our radar. I mean, what we would do in that instance is, because it wouldn't be available right at the time of registration, is we would make clear that prior to someone attending the actual session, it would be circulated in advance, so that it is a consideration.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And Tom, right now in my queue, I have Derek and then Dawn. Is there anyone else who wants to be in the queue? Sheena, thank you. So we'll start with Derek.
Can you guys hear this?
Yes.
Just a quick question. I alluded to it when I typed a message to everyone before, but have we liaisoned with the business community and the RCMP in regards to transit hub downtown? And I say this with all discretion and tact that I possibly can, but it's pretty evident that we have an issue downtown here with some homelessness, some substance abuse issues, and it's pretty noticeable now. Certainly over the 12 years that I've been in the Comox Valley, I've noticed that things have certainly deteriorated in the downtown core. And so if we're going to put a transit hub downtown, that's great. I think the business community would welcome the opportunity to get more bodies downtown, which obviously fuels the economic side of it. But then there's also with that, the flip side of the coin is that we are now importing more people into the downtown core. Has anybody thought about liaisoning or talking to or speaking with the local RCMP about policing downtown? Because this is an issue that comes up a lot for us in our industry now. I'm seeing people avoiding the downtown core, not wanting to live in the downtown core, not wanting to shop in the downtown core, just because of the sheer volume of different socioeconomic realities that occur there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. A quick response, Nancy or Tats?
Yes. Thank you, Derek. Yes, we do aware that we are aware of that comment from business owner in downtown. So we are working with CVRD, who is responsible for transit and planning in the region. So as I said in the chat box, we will be approaching local RCMP, identify more specific issues, and then in conjunction with the public transit hub planning. So it's coming up that our intention to work with CVRD very closely and to minimize negative impact in downtown. So please stay tuned.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe I'll just clarify further is it is indeed the BC Transit with CVRD. It is their process to be exploring the transit hub concepts. There's a number of them across the valley that are being in the initial stages of conceptualized. What we realized on the OCP team was that we heard they were working on that. We thought we could bring up the concept in a walkabout, but it is not the OCP's process in and of itself. It's more to kind of hear what people are saying, etc. But ultimately, BC Transit would be responsible for doing the more detailed engagement, including stakeholder engagement. So it's very high level at this point, and we just saw an opportunity to bring it into our process.
Okay, so let me switch over as trying to respect time as well as commitment and interest. Dawn.
A few comments. Tom, you probably have a comment on this too. In terms of showing precedent images, I would try, and I saw that on the graph or the surveys, I would think as a person who does those old hand sketches, I would stay away from them from now on. They never end up being built like they were sketched, and artists' interpretations, as one of those artists, we get to say everything's green and lush and this rain garden is going to look like this and this median is going to look like that. We know they don't quite look like the sketch. So use either 3D, really detailed imaging or real photo precedents, I'd say, from now on, because I think a lot of people watch like, I saw that sketch and it never looked like, and look how it really looks. Like the before and afters are deceiving. On the walkabouts, are they being run by staff and the consultants? Like, is there a leader in that walkabout? And then the follow-up is our role to listen, to sort of deflect if they get pretty adverse? Where do you see us helping out city staff, and how like what is that role if it gets confrontational, right? But first of all, who's leading those things and their expertise level?
Okay,
Yeah,
Nancy.
thanks for that very good logistical question. So the city staff are running the workshops, the consultants are running the virtual sessions.
Okay.
Your own role would be in a listening mode. However, you know, you're part of a conversation, right? So if you, as having the ability to see this project from the beginning towards the end, more than probably the average person, you with a particular stakeholder interest, if you feel you have some expertise, you're more than welcome to lend that expertise and that perspective. But without, you know, trying to take all the time, we're really trying to hear from a lot of people. So it's part of having a conversation, I guess, in that kind of that spirit.
Okay, Sheena. Thank you, Nancy. Good question, Dawn.
I'm going to apologize to Nancy and Tats right away because I'm suggesting additional work for you, but I think it would just be really interesting. Lots of those walkabouts have schools in them, in their little catchment areas. And I think it would be fascinating for us to use school time and take a classroom out to do a walkabout of their neighborhood and get that perspective from the people who actually walk the neighborhoods the most, which are those that can't drive or bike. So I think that's just, I'm sorry for the additional work, but I think it might be a really useful tool. It also is a way for me to add in the education of our future citizens and how this works and why they need to be involved. And this might be some experience that really sparks their desire to be more engaged in civic processes, which I think is key. And the other piece is just a bigger question, and it probably can't be answered today, but you know, I heard time and time again in those consultations, the need for regional plan, the need for amalgamation, the need to have a regional vision all the time, because we don't, well, we are separate municipalities, we're not at all. And so I don't know where that puts our OCP process. You know, we can do it and it can be our guiding document, but really, I think what I'm hearing from people is that our OCP is just a spoke in a wheel, and the entire wheel needs to be built before we're actually going to have a healthy valley. So just not sure about like, how do we do those processes? I know that regionalization is complex and controversial for some. So I just don't want to see all of our work go for naught if in fact what we should be working on is regional.
And that's certainly a fair comment. And one of the toughest things to recognize in this process is not only the spatial complexity, but the hierarchical complexity of the OCP and the transit plan and the local area plans and the more specific bylaws that come up. This is being nested in a very, very complex process. And the geographical issue is an important one. And that's why the work that the regional district planning group doing on some of the different master plans is also very important, and the regional growth strategy and things like that. So yeah, we have to make sure we are legally constrained to producing a municipal OCP, but that then has to be fitted in with complementary to the regional strategies, and the message given to the elected officials is to push on resolving some of these dimensions so that we do have a better regional cohesive strategy or direction. Any other questions from people as we're going forward? Any concluding comments? There's a few people, Tanis, Aaron, Gary, that we have, and Annalise and Lindsay, if you're within hearing range, that we haven't heard much from. And I really want to give you folks a chance to make some comments, because some of us have had, you know, have been participating verbally, but Tanis.
I'm a student of this process. I am not a planner, so I'm sitting back and seeing all the work that's being done and appreciating it. And I guess, as always, I'm concerned and interested as to how the development community will receive what we're doing, and if we're, you know, on some really far tangent from what they might be hoping for, and how staff has probably, I'm sure, considered this and how that's being integrated into the process so far, or what we can do to get them on board as, you know, as much as possible, as early in the process as possible, which I know has been happening. And we have representatives hear from them. Yeah, it's one of those challenges that I'm waiting and watching to see how it will unfold.
Good, thank you. Annalise.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I really like what Sheena said about kind of involving the schools. I know that I would have loved to do a process like that when I was younger. And I think especially looking at high schools, I know that there's a lot of transportation issues that a lot of students have and they want to bring up, as well as walkability. I know Mark Arisfeld is not a very walkable school, and I know that from being there for years that students have concerns, and maybe other things that we've done to reach out for community voice hasn't really reached students yet. I know Charlotte and I have tried to get students to talk about these issues at our different engagement things, but it would be really cool if we could do that as a walkable kind of thing or visual. Back in February, Charlotte and I were trying to do school meetings, but obviously COVID has kind of stopped that, and now I'm moved beyond high school. So yeah, I would be interested in seeing if that could be a possibility.
Okay. Aaron or Gary, any comments? Aaron.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I disagree a bit with on Tanis's perspective on for the end of with the conservation partnership. We look primarily most of our work is working with local governments and engagement. So again, we are following all this process and using our networks as much as possible to get that information and engage those that aren't as aware of some of these issues that are being tied in through the OCP process. But we are very much looking forward to some of the more deeper dive issues from our perspective. There's some specific asks that we would like to be, you know, sinking our teeth into. So I think that's where we're going to have a more vocal engagement and look forward to, and one kind of those educational type aspects as well, and bringing that information into the process. So I have been thoroughly enjoying this conversation and bringing aspects that aren't usually on my trajectory and bringing them into a more community vision. So that's where I'm at this point, but I'm very much appreciating a lot of the perspectives today.
Thank you. And Gary, I apologize. I'm not able to see blue hands. The electronic hands go up. So your turn.
All right. So yeah, so love hearing, you know, everybody's thoughts and everything like that for sure. And almost, I think, go back to what Don was saying on, you know, just public's perception on some of the, you know, pictures and stuff that have gone out there, you know, when they see a 3-story building or a 4-story building, that type of thing. I find it quite interesting. You know, obviously, you know, our area has been, you know, fairly rural feeling area for a very long time. I was here back in the early.
We got a freeze up here.
Sure. And I think time goes on, you know, you know, to help the community see that, you know, as we grow, we have to mature as you know, a smaller city center as well. And I think that is moving up, you know, especially when you look at feasibility, construction costs and stuff like that. You know, I'm hearing everything from developer's point of view, and of course there's huge amounts of risk involved with everything that we're talking about, you know, from my standpoint. So I not only have to find the land to put projects on, make them feasible, make them attractive, then deal with the larger community to make sure that we're being environmentally productive things. So boxes to check to make sure that even bringing these projects to work. So I find it's pretty interesting when we talk about what these looks are going to be, or what's the density level and that type of thing. So I think that's where I would sit on that.
Good, thank you. I want to give Bob, Tats, and Nancy an opportunity to close, but are there any other comments that people want to make before we turn it over to the Dawn and then Aaron?
Yeah, I think the one thing we keep saying here, I want to be responsible or have the voice of Nancy and Tats a little bit, or maybe not. As this group, we're doing a lot of the pie in the sky stuff and a lot of brainstorming, and I like that. But I think we also have to be realistic of the budget of this OCP sometimes, in that we keep, and that's Nancy and Tats, if you can respond to, but we keep saying we want to see this and 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 this. And wouldn't it be great? And I love that. But realistically, is my question kind of is it already set? Can you change these walks? When we look at adding videographers, we have to understand that is a lot of time and task and things. So yes, they are all great ideas, and I don't want to stifle anyone's, but we also have to realize this has to get done in a certain amount of time and a certain amount of skills. So do these great ideas then get tasked later down the road? Is there an interim solution after you get this OCP finally done? Is there a 2-year plan away or can you take these ideas and turn them into different engagement opportunities at a smaller scale or something? Because I know you guys can't do everything we keep asking right now, right? So I think as a board, I think we have to realize, yes, it's one responsibility to throw everything out there and see what sticks, but also understand that everything we ask takes time, money, staff, and all that too, right? So I I don't want to stuff anything, but also understand that every ask is an add-on, and they've already signed off on council budgets for this OCP, as far as I know.
Okay, you guys can respond in your collective comments in just a minute. So if we could hold that, Aaron and
Yes.
Annalise. Okay, Aaron first.
I just want to, again, just really quickly, it's not a big, broad comment or ask to wrap up the session, but we do, on the end of the Comox Valley and the Land Trust, we've got a few exciting webinars that are coming up that are working on talking about networking local government stewardship groups and communities on the messaging of watershed resilience, and with local examples. And it's a really nice, there's one coming up October 21st to 23rd. So there's a few sessions that are coming up that would really help the entire technical advisory committee to have a little bit of more information and education as we move through this process. So I just was hoping to get that permission or let you know that I'd be circulating that information. But I would think it would be a good opportunity for some of the technical advisory committee as well to kind of understand what's happening locally as we start moving through this process as well. So I encourage everybody to participate. They're free, and it's dynamic to learn what's happening in the Valley locally.
Good, thank you. Well, Annalise, and then I'll turn it over to Bob, just to give you the heads up and then let the staff conclude.
I think
Annalise.
I said my comment before, so I'm all good.
I was seeing a hand move, so I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Not seeing any hands in excitement. Sheena.
Sorry, I'm a talker. Just one more. I also want to, I've had lots of experience doing community engagement and implementing very unpopular things into neighborhoods. I would caution us around this, just classifying NIMBYism as a thing. I think that it's kind of a disrespectful language to use, because I think people have legitimate.
We're freezing up here, but I'm suspecting you're saying people have legitimate concerns and we need to respect that. And if I could, sorry, Sheena, we're not getting any, there you come back online.
Yeah,
Okay.
there. So did you catch most of that? The
We
NIMBY.
stopped that. People need to be respectful, I think.
Yeah.
Good reason for NIMBY.
Right. And I think it just adds into the idea of a master plan. I think when people see that it's not just their neighborhoods that will be affected, this is where the effect will take place in the entire valley. I think that that's helpful to have people appreciate they're taking their share of the work. They're not taking all of the work.
Good. Thank you. Bob.
Well, I should start first by apologizing for telling everybody at the beginning of the meeting to use their little blue hands. And I've been seeing them, but I did get pulled away for a little bit on a quick call. But it's been great hearing the conversation. I'm trying not to talk too much. I would say of the people on this meeting, the Zoom meeting, most of us are good talkers, a chatty bunch for sure. And it's been really good to hear. And you know, one of the things that I think stood out for me was that question about reaching out to youth, which I think is a really interesting concept. I got to work on the Salmon Arm OCP back in around 1992, 93. And the result of that is I ended up running for city council as the only teenager in BC. So I think it's certainly a way to engage the youth into what's happening. It certainly aligns, I think, a lot with where city council is. You know, some municipalities do have junior councils and stuff, but as you can imagine, then you have to pay for somebody to manage that. So there may be an opportunity here, but I'd really be looking to staff, if that's even a possibility. I mean, if we can give something to this school district that's simple, then there may be a simple way of doing it. But again, with COVID, there's challenges right across the board. But I do like that idea quite a lot. So, but beyond that, I just want to really thank everybody for giving up your morning to really participate and be part of this discussion. It's been really fantastic to listen to it.
So Pat and Nancy, one of you will have the penultimate comment and the other concludes. I'll let you choose.
Oh, probably I go first. Thanks to everyone for your brilliant ideas. Right now, constrained by tight budget, but good idea. I like it. I like to make it that happen using skills and technique and support from advisory committee and residents as well. So in terms of education, I very much supported it. So especially implementation stage, that'd be critical to learn together to make it make good things happen. So we like to proceed that idea a lot. So please stay tuned. And using Sid Williams theater provided by Betty, that's a brilliant idea too. So we will consider it the next stage, not coming neighborhood consultation stage, but it's also a brilliant idea. We will think about it. And well, thanks again for the your support, continuous support, and we will stay in touch with the this coming neighborhood consultation. So thank you again.
Good, thanks, Tats. Nancy.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's this process, because I know we're struggling with it, trying to do so much, and you know, I'm reflecting on the OCP is the stage we're at drafting it is part of a continuum of process. There's the regional growth strategy, fortunately, that we do have from 10 years ago that sets a growth direction, and the OCPs in our community have to be consistent with it. So a lot of this thinking, the emerging goals are very consistent with the RGS, so that's great. We want to continue moving that direction. Then we create an OCP with these high level goals, recognizing implementation will be actually like the real work, right? The plan in some ways is, you know, okay, we get a plan in place, but that long range relationships, whether it's harnessing, I think that's a very astute observation about NIMBYism. Maybe we throw the term out a little cavalierly, but those are people who really care about their areas and harnessing that passion they have and stewarding that into further engagement. So for really productive ideas and getting their neighbors involved. I mean, that's the ideal of planning. So I think we can see that there will be work ongoing after the OCP. And I think some of the ideas you brought today, we can do now in this process. And then with our mind towards that longer range is already, we're thinking of how to make these ideas happen, which will need more engagement. And a lot of your ideas, I'm already thinking, next year and beyond, if our council permitting. So in just logistics, I will send out an email with the sign up ability for the different walkabouts and virtual session. You can just sign up as like a public member, and then I'll send out some promotional materials. And the promotional will depend on when we can get the registration going. So I can't guarantee exactly when the promotional materials will come, but it'll be in the next few days. If not today, then probably Tuesday. Thank you. I very concentrated, discussion today. Very valuable for staff. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, typically, the next meeting date will be of the committee will be set as needed. But do we need? I'm just looking. Do we need a motion on that? Last time we had 0.5 was moved that a motion to establish the next meeting be postponed and the staff liaise with the advisory committee to establish the next meeting via email. Are we comfortable with confirming that as part of the official minutes again? Okay, Sheena moves, Annalise seconds. All those in favor? Thank you, everyone. Passed. No new business, so could I have a motion then to adjourn the meeting? That's an easy one, folks. Bob, a seconder? Gary, that's what I thought, sorry. All those in favor? Passed. Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated for the inputs and the spirit of the inputs of how this engagement's gone. So very well done. So we'll look forward to connecting with you individually as we do these walkabouts and virtual workshops in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye. Good to see you all.
Yeah.
We'll see you next Friday, Betty. Thanks for organizing that.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Great work, Tots and Nancy. Oh my God.
Yes. Okay.
Betty? Betty, I'd love to talk to you after the meeting or like later today or something so we can talk about some stuff. Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.